Hello, and welcome back to another video. And in this video, we're going to be looking at Guild Wars 2 lore, the fall of Ascalon. So we're looking more into the lore. We watched Loranity's video the other day about that, about like a kind of a base beginning backstory into the lore. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper into certain aspects, and I wanted to look at Guild Wars 2 lore for the fall of Ascalon, which was mentioned in the previous video. But this video is by a channel called Wooden Potatoes, and it's a channel that I'm certain quite a few of you have heard of before, because I remember when Guild Wars 2 came out in 2012, seeing a lot of videos by this creator, Wooden Potatoes, at the time, and it seems like he was kind of like the biggest Guild Wars 2 creator at the time. I don't know if he is now, but maybe he is. And this video itself is actually from June 2012 as well, so getting right into the beginning of the Guild Wars 2 lore. I remember back in when the game came out, and lots of people were talking about Guild Wars 2. Turtle Biscuit, God rest his soul, spoke about Wooden Potatoes and recommended to watch him. So I've been aware of Wooden Potatoes for actually quite a long time. So obviously, if you haven't subscribed to him already, his links to his channel is in the description, and the link to this video as well is also in the description, to make sure you show it some love. Although the video is literally over 10 years old, we're still going to go and we're still going to watch it. But before we get into it, I do want to start off by saying thank you all so much for getting the channel to 1,000 subscribers. It's something that I wasn't really sure that was going to happen at one point, but it has happened, and I'm very, very grateful to everyone who has subscribed and liked the videos and commented recently. There were points over the past year or so where I did consider just giving up, and I'm glad I didn't. So thank you all, really, from the bottom of my heart. I really do appreciate your support in these videos and the channel. And again, thank you all so much for getting us to 1,000 subscribers. But because we have got to 1,000 subscribers, like I said in the last video, streams are going to start imminently. So either follow the community tab on this channel or on like my Twitter or something like that for updates for when that happens. But it's going to happen within the next days. Maybe even now. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, obviously, having said that, do consider liking this video if you like stuff like this, and consider subscribing as well. Because as I say, we do lots of MMO stuff. We're covering Guild Wars 2 right now, but we did FF14 and stuff like that as well. So if you're into those kind of games, make sure you subscribe. Anyway, now that we've done that, all of that, we can finally get into watching Guild Wars 2 lore, The Fall of Ascalon by Wooden Potatoes. In 3, 2, 1, go. Following part of a short series videos teach people how the Guild Wars are 2
Guild Wars 2 has a big world with a...
There was a part 1, but part 1 was more of like a general overview, and we kind of had that with Loranity's last video. So I want to go into more specific stuff, which is why we're starting at part 2.
Full backstory that you probably won't know about if you've never played the original. The story begins with Guild Wars Prophecies, the first campaign of 4 to be released under the original title. The following is a summary or retelling of the events leading up to Guild Wars 2, starting with Prophecies. For many years before the game began, the humans that lived on Tyria had been warring with one another.
Yeah.
There were 3 separate kingdoms on the continent, Ascalon, Crater, and Or, each one often engaged in battle with the other 2.
We know this now.
The latest war didn't have a good reason to start. Small fights between local guilds were becoming more frequent, and when blood was spilled in Ara, the holy city of the gods, the nation of Or took military action. Despite the fact these became wars between armies and nations, their original names stuck. These were the Guild Wars. Though they're not what the game...
Oh, we said the title. Let's do it. I want to listen to that again.
Frequent, and when blood was spilled in Ara, the holy city of the gods, the nation of Or took military action. Despite the fact these became wars between armies and nations, their original names stuck. These were the Guild Wars. Though they're not what the games are about.
That makes so much sense.
After making a new character, the most you hear about the Guild Wars are events taking place many miles away that you never actually participate in. Instead, the plot takes a very different turn, opening when a disaster catches the nation of Ascalon unawares. You play as a faceless hero who would be a witness for all that would follow. Ascalon was one of the 3 human kingdoms, a land of rolling pastures, clear lakes, and green woods. Its king was a man named Adalbern, who rose from humble origins without royal blood. However, thanks to his prowess on the battlefield during the Guild Wars, he had been made king instead of the true successor, Duke Baradin. There were royalists who rebelled and fought to give Baradin the crown instead, but these and the distant Guild Wars aside, Ascalon in the year 1070 AE was a land of peace and of beauty.
Okay.
Adalbern grew older and his son Rurik would one day become king. Rurik planned to marry Duke Baradin's daughter, Lady Althea, and planning for a royal wedding had begun.
Oh, no.
The future was bright. Yet the king and his son did not have a perfect relationship. Rurik was young and brash, while Adalbern stubborn and old. They often argued on military matters, and the prince even commanded his own personal vanguard of soldiers, completely separate from the king's financing or influence. The defense of the nation was of utmost importance, and for this, Ascalon had a wall. Incredibly tall and strong, it reached from one border of the kingdom to the other. The result of hundreds of years' development, it was continually being reinforced.
The Northern Wall.
For good reason. Like the Cretans to the west, the people of Ascalon had walked into something else's territory when originally arriving in that part of the world. The territory of the CHARR, and the wall was made to keep them out. A race of cunning, bestial felines, the CHARR lived in Ascalon long before humanity arrived. They had always known the utter conquest and dominion of the grounds they trod, believing in victory in battle at any cost. However, when the Khan their supreme leader, was assassinated, the CHARR fell into vicious infighting. Humanity used this time to attack. They drove them far north and took Ascalon for themselves. The CHARR never forgot this, and since had been in a continuous state of war with the humans, hoping to one day reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Except they never breached the wall. The Ascalonians had always held their ground, and in recent years the CHARR attacks had been fewer and further between. There were so few attacks, in fact, that humanity had begun to move north. Entire cities were constructed beyond the reach of the wall, and even Draskir, the capital of Ascalon, lay far beyond its protection. The story begins in the year 1070, when a CHARR scout is spotted south of the wall. That Lord Doomtooth had been using the catacombs and caves beneath Ascalon to sneak undetected through the countryside, and his presence likely meant the beginning of a renewed CHARR attack. Rurik and his vanguard were quick to cut the CHARR down, but too slow to realise the danger Ascalon was in. The humans had always relied on their 5 gods for protection. Now the CHARR had found gods of their own, the Titans. These fiery beasts from a distant land gave the CHARR power.
I hope that's a leg or a tail.
Enough to launch a new attack.
Good God.
Still, more than power, the Titans gave the CHARR an artifact.
How has this been on YouTube for 10 years?
Imbued with ancient magics older than the CHARR or even the Titans themselves, and created by beings long since fallen to sleep and legend, the cauldron would wreak devastation on Ascalon. The humans had grown complacent. When the CHARR used the cauldron, the sky rained down gigantic flaming crystals that destroyed cities both north and south of the wall. Anything green, tree and grass alike, burned away. Streams and lakes became bubbling pits of tar, the ground dried and cracked, and all of Ascalon was transformed from an idyllic land of beauty and prosperity to a post-apocalyptic wasteland. This event is known as the Searing. King Adalbern was not ready for the following invasion. The CHARR army swept through immediately, crashing down on everything to the north. The people of the capital were slaughtered before a resistance could be mustered, and soon the CHARR were at the wall, stalled, yet not for long. They had their sights set on more than just Ascalon. The CHARR had developed a hatred for all humans, and Ascalon was not enough. Krita and Or, the other 2 human kingdoms, knew they would be attacked next, and so, despite the racism and hatred still felt between the 3 human nations, the Guild Wars finally ended. No aid was sent to Ascalon on the front lines, but Krita and Or instead prepared themselves for an inevitable attack on their own.
So, thought just come in. So with Guild Wars, so he said that the fall of Ascalon is part of the first, was it patch expansions kind of thing? So was Guild Wars 1 entirely focused on the guild wars between the 3 guilds? Or countries, but you know what I mean. Is that what it was? Just interesting.
Within the year, the CHARR reached Ur, and, rather than see its holy lands defiled by their presence, the advisor to their king had the entire nation sunk to the bottom of the ocean in a massive explosion. This was an event known as the Cataclysm, which saw the loss of all of Ur and the death of thousands in a single day. But perhaps a more curious tale comes from Kryta. This kingdom was faced by far more CHARR than they could possibly handle, and their king had abandoned them and fled the throne. They were ready to be crushed. Except they weren't. Somehow the CHARR army was defeated and repelled with seemingly little effort, and Kryta became the only nation to escape the CHARR unharmed. Ascalon had no such luck. By the year 1072, 2 years after the searing, the Great Northern Wall was broken in multiple places, weathered by various CHARR assaults. The breach was one of these holes, and it was through this that Duke Baradin and his men had travelled. They were at Pecan Square, a small fortified area beyond the wall in now CHARR-held lands. It was a dangerous place, but the men were there for good reason. Lady Althea, Baradin's daughter and Rurik's fiancée, had been kidnapped by the CHARR. They could not save her. The discovery that she'd been burned alive was one of many hardships since the searing, and slowly he lost faith in his father's ability to restore the kingdom. This became public knowledge, and soon there was a divide in the Ascalonian people. Those who believed in their aging king, and those who followed Rurik, hoping for victory under new command. Disagreements between the king and his son continued, particularly when an ambassador from Kryta arrived in Ascalon offering aid in their war against the CHARR. Kryta had escaped the CHARR invasion and had resources to offer. Zane was not a typical Krytan, though. The man wore unfamiliar robes and believed in gods that the Ascalonians did not recognize. Adalbern, having spent his youth fighting these people in the guild wars...
I mean, if you were to compare these two, they don't look the same, do they?
...was fiercely untrusting. He banned Zane from entering the cities and refused all aid, vowing never to let his people live in the shadow of the Krytans. But Rurik did trust him. He saw Kryta as a valuable ally and believed accepting Zane's aid was the only way Ascalonians would see better times. Despite his father, Rurik met with the Krytan ambassador to discuss arrangements. These meetings with Zane had a significant impact on Rurik, but before anything came of them, he was drawn away by news of the wall. A CHARR leader named Bonfaz Burntfur had mustered a large assault force that hadn't been spotted quickly enough by scouts and was now through Ascalon's defences. They made it far south, close to Fort Rannick, before at last being countered and pushed back. Men tried to repair what damage had been done, but Bonfaz did not leave with nothing. He took human prisoners with him, north beyond the wall as he fled, a move that enraged Rurik. So the prince took just a handful of men and travelled deep into enemy lands to rescue his kinsman. A brash decision. This was the perfect time for the CHARR to kill Rurik, but they were unable to, and the humans made a lucky discovery. Rurik found himself at Draskir, the fallen capital north of the wall, and here, in an old academy for magic, he found something that could turn the tide of war. The mouthpiece of Stormcaller, a legendary horn said capable of saving Ascalon from defeat when blown. Unsure if it was their salvation or a small victory too late, Rurik made his way to Rin, the new capital, where the horn could be blown. Unfortunately, in the meantime, Bonfaz had been busy and Adalbern neglectful. When Rurik arrived in Rin, just days since his last departure, he found it sieged and in ruins, captured by the CHARR. Heedless, he blew Stormcaller, and the CHARR fires and effigies were put out in a sudden rain that turned the tide of battle. Slowly, they were defeated, and at last, Bonfaz himself was slain in Rin. Adalbern arrived and claimed great victory, but Rurik did not see it that way. Many CHARR were dead, but Rin was destroyed. Stormcaller had been used, but the CHARR would return. They could not win the war alone.
How can you use Stormcaller?
So Rurik did what his father could never agree with. He accepted Zane's offer of aid. Rurik called Adalbern a fool in public, claiming the king would lead his people to their death. Their relationship was already at breaking point, and this was the last straw. So for this, Adalbern exiled Rurik. Father and son would never meet again. Rurik took his vanguard and those loyal to him and made for Kryta, thinking there waited safety and better times for his countrymen. He could never return once he left. The nation split, with some following Rurik and fleeing the land, the rest remaining with their aging king. Reaching Kryta meant crossing the Shiver Peaks, a long mountain range separating Ascalon from the rest of the continent. The mountains were difficult to pass, especially for such a large group of Ascalonian evacuees, yet there was some aid to be had. The Shiver Peaks were the home of the Dwarves, an ancient race of short mountain dwellers that had been on Tyria far longer than man.
There are dwarves? Why haven't we met them yet?
Kind had.
Maybe.
They had shelter and the means of
Have
passing
we?
the mountain safely, and while they did not interact often, the
Bring the
humans and
dwarves!
dwarves were mostly at peace. They could help Rurik. But not all dwarves wanted to. The Stone Summit, a splinter faction of slave drivers, carried a deep xenophobic hatred of men and were currently in war with the Deldrimor dwarves. They harried Rurik's people and posed a serious threat to the success of the Ascalonian migration. So Rurik met with the Dwarf King of Deldrimor, Jarlis, for assistance. But there was a problem. Dagnar Stonepate, leader of the Stone Summit, had captured a large fortification blocking the safest path through the mountains called the Frostgate.
Okay.
Dagnar would not open the way for mankind. If Rurik wanted to see the evacuees make it to Kryta rather than freeze on the Shiver Peaks, he needed to help Jarlis fight the Stone Summit. And this is what he did. Armed with the aid of Deldrimor, the Ascalonians caught the slavers off guard, breached their defences, and won the gate.
Okay.
But victory came at a price.
Oh no.
Dagnar Stonepate refused to watch the defeat of his forces without taking something in return. So he came for Rurik. Rurik, who was once again being brash and hard-headed, was stood alone, the last to pass through the gate. He was no match for Dagnar. The dwarf called down an avalanche that crushed Rurik beneath it, and, helpless, the prince, caught in a dwarven civil war that had nothing to do with the CHARR or his father, died beneath the snow with his sword by his side. The body was not recovered, and there was little time to mourn for the lost prince. He may have died, but Rurik did not fail his people. The refugees were through the gate, and the worst of it, with the help of his vanguard, the surviving men and women did make it to Kryta. And this is really where the first chapter of the story ends, with a band of refugees who would later embark on an adventure across the world, looking down on their new home. You had joined Rurik's vanguard and seen it all happen, but there were still many more questions. How had Kryta survived the CHARR invasion? What were the titans that the CHARR had begun to worship as gods? What exactly had happened at Or? Well, these are really all questions about the Flameseeker prophecies, what the game is actually named after, and we'll look at that next video. Thanks for watching.
Okay, let's stop the video there. That was a lot to take in. That was a lot to take in. I mean, again, fascinating, and there's a lot to watch. Do we want to watch all of these? We could do that. We'll spread it out over time, obviously. But do you think it's worth watching all of these? Because we absolutely can do. I mean, that does clear up a lot. The thing is that I keep thinking. So are these are episodes that you play through in the original Guild Wars. It seems like I kind of want to play them. I mean, I can't. They sound really fun to play through. I don't know. I have never really seen much of Guild Wars 1, but those who have played it, what was it like? Like, was it really cool and like fun to see these chapters in the story? Does it help you appreciate Guild Wars 2 a lot more now? Like, I would be interested to know. I mean, it's hard to comment on, you know, a lot of stuff that happened in the lore in this video, really, because it's a telling of the story, and a story that I didn't really know much about. But it does help. Really, watching these videos does help give you a good perspective about the game that you're actually playing. Why is this the most replayed bit?
Within the year, the CHARR reached Or, and, rather than see its holy lands defiled by their presence, the advisor to their king had the entire nation sunk to the bottom of the ocean in a massive explosion.
It's mad. Cataclysms everywhere. Do I have a massive amount? I don't have much to add. Just, it was a great video. Please do go and watch it. And I'm gonna keep pushing through and playing Guild Wars 2. And as I said, I'm gonna start streaming the story bits when I get out of the base game. But I do want to ask, in the future, would people, after I've kind of played through most of Guild Wars 2, would people want to see some going back to Guild Wars 1 and seeing what that's like? Seeing these stories and the beginning of the lore of the world that built Guild Wars 2 happen? I mean, it sounds interesting, and like a lot of these chapters I think would be really interesting to play through. It would be cool maybe if they could do a flashback kind of playthrough for these chapters. I don't know if that's really even possible, but that would be really cool. Question mark? Why is it a question mark? But yeah, I think we will go through these, and if you have any other recommendations for videos around lore, please let me know, because I'd love to watch them and give my thoughts on them. Because I find you appreciate games how much more if you actually know what's going on. So yes, we will continue to do that. But as I said, the links to Wooden Potatoes and this video is in the description below. So please do go and make sure you go watch that and subscribe and support him, of course. And there's really not much I could say to add to this, so I will end the video here. So what I will say is thank you all so much for watching again. Thank you again for 1,000 subs. And if you did enjoy this video and you have any recommendations, put those in the comments. But yes, if you enjoyed the video, do give it a like and subscribe as well. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.